Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today is my favorite time of the month, and that is because we are going to update my reading journal. So we are going to do the spreads for the books I read throughout March. This month was a really good reading month for me since they were almost all 5 stars, and the books are The Danger You Know by Lily White, Shatter Me by Tyra Maffey, and This Book Sucks by Piper CJ. In this spread, the ones I'm coloring in this dark gray are the 5 stars, and the one in the middle is for 4 stars. This Book Sucks got 4.5 stars, but when it's half ratings, I always round for the number below. So when it's 4.5, I round to 4 stars, 3.5 to 3 stars, and so on and so forth. Just in the reading goals, because it's easier to differentiate between the 5 stars and the others. Shatter Me was in my maybe next, or to be read as most people call it, so we have to color in the stars. And I call it maybe next because I saw Erin Smith do it. I'll leave her channel down below. And maybe next takes the pressure of reading, so to be read sounds like I have to read these books, and maybe next is more like a suggestion. Next, we have to update my bookshelf with the corresponding colors of the ratings as well. Now for the challenges. First we have the alphabet challenge, and this time I only had The Danger You Know for the letter T, because S for Shatter Me was already taken, and This Book Sucks also begins with T, so I picked the other book. And for Read Rainbow I put Shatter Me in the grey color since the cover is mostly grey. For the book bingo, I filled in 5 squares, and I write the title of the book in the corresponding number of the square in this list on the left, just so I know which book completed each prompt. So first, published before 2020 is for Shatter Me, standalone and chapter titles not numbers is for This Book Sucks, From Book Talk is for The Danger You Know, and Book with Water on the cover is for Shatter Me. And my rule is that each book can fill a maximum of 3 prompts, so it's more challenging to do, and I can motivate myself to read more books that can fill the other prompts, and not just one book for 10 prompts, if that makes sense. Here on the other page is the book places, and this is where I write the locations that each book takes place, if it's mentioned at all. So it can be fictional or actual places, and in this case I added Colorado for Karma, which was a book from February, but I forgot to put in here, and Seattle, that's where This Book Sucks takes place. And now let's move on to the book series. And I only have to add the series Shatter Me because the other 2 books are standalones, and I seriously need to complete some of this series before starting new ones, but I can read a series in one go. I have to read something else in between each book because I get bored pretty easily, and it just works better for me that way. So let's see how it goes. Also, yes, the color that I'm using now, it's different than the other squares, and that's because I can find the right marker. I don't know which one I used for this, so now I just accept that the squares are going to be different colors. Here in the reading log, I just put the general information of each book I read, so the title, the author, number of pages when I started and finished, and also the star rating. And it just works as a quick overview of all the books I read throughout 2025. Next is the general review space, and in here I put more detailed information on each book, like the cover, the title and the author again, the series is part of, or if it's a standalone, the genre, the format I read, when it was published, and a quick review. Just a few sentences that resumes the way I felt about the book, because in the spreads that I do monthly I write a lot more and I mention some spoilers or some notes, which makes it a more in-depth review. Next to the cover, I also like to put the star rating and the spice rating. And about that, I think I'm going to change the way I rate my books, because I feel like I'm not giving a correct rating. Some books I just don't know how to rate. So I saw that Erin Smith came up with a new rating system called Peach and Mitsu. That's also her cat's names, which is very cute. And the Peach system, that's for fictional books, is perfect for me because it also takes in consideration the overall vibes of the book. So Peach stands for plot, enjoyment, artistry, characters, and heart. So this last one is the one that I like because most rating systems don't take in consideration the sentiment or the vibes that the book gives us, and it's more harsh on the rating. So I think in April I'm going to start using that and see if I like it. And the last spread before we start working on March is the challenge A Year of Goober, hosted by Jashii here on YouTube. And for March I could pick between the flower Daffodil, which was for cover change or being republished, or Jonquil, that was for a random pick. And I went with Jonquil and chose The Danger You Know for this month. This flower also means luck, so that's what I'm putting here on the right. And that's it for the initial spreads, so now let's begin the March setup. But first, I want to show you what product I'm going to use for this cover spread. Arrtx kindly sent me the 60 acrylic marker set, and they are basically acrylic paint in a marker form, which is incredibly useful sometimes, as I mentioned in a previous video, and it's a medium that I still have to practice a little bit. They also come with label stickers, these tiny circle ones to put on the top, and these rectangle ones that you can put wherever you like. I put mine on the cap, but you can put it on the barrel as well. It has a brush nib that is perfect to color tiny spaces or make large strokes because of the flexibility of the tip. The package has these transparent squares that fits each marker vertically, and that's also really useful for storage. Now let's put this aside and I'm going to swatch every color in my trusty sketchbook. These acrylic markers come in a bunch of different colors. I have the anime set, but it also has metallics, pastels and regular ones, so I'll have the links down below so you can check them out. As I was swatching, I noticed that the paint dries really quickly, just like acrylic paint, and the paint comes out really juicy, and the colors are really saturated, which is really good to go over anything like pens or pencils. I also think that the 60 color set is the perfect set because it comes with a big variety of colors, also with skin tones, which I appreciate, but if you need more colors, they also have a set with 90 colors, or if you think that's too much, they also have 38, 36, 30 and 12 color sets. So you can pick the one that's better for what you need. Different from other paint markers, these ones don't need you to shake before use, so it makes it even more easy. You just have to take the cap off and paint. You can use these markers in many surfaces. I actually already used them off camera on a figure made with filament from a 3D printer that I have at work. It's basically plastic and it works really well. I'm going to show you how they perform on paper in a few minutes. So instead of painting directly onto my notebook, I decided to make the drawing on my sketchbook because I wanted to put some decoration behind it, so you see that later. And my inspiration for this was this art that I found on Pinterest. I don't know the artist, but I really liked it, so I made a more simple version. And I first drew with a classic pencil, then I erased it with my kneadable eraser so it was very light, and then I go over it with this old watercolor pencil. Basically, these colors work like watercolors, they dissolve in water, and since I'm working with paint, I thought it was perfect. I again used the eraser to take some pigment off because I didn't want it to mix with the paint, and then I started coloring. I actually didn't know what to do for this theme because I wanted something colorful so I could experiment with more colors. And then I saw one washi tape that I'm going to use later that has these water lilies on it. And I thought, okay, why not draw water lilies on a pond? They are cute, they are simple to do, and I can use many colors. And that's when I found that art on Pinterest. And that image actually is more vibrant with the greens, but I wanted to match the color on the washi tape, so I used more dark and muted greens to complement it. Basically, I started from light to dark because my brain works that way. With paint markers, I know that I can work in reverse, so if I want, I can go from dark to light because the paint is saturated enough to cover the dark, but I just like to do it this way, and I decided to try different greens on different water lilies to be more dynamic. The perspective is not correct, but I didn't go for realism, I just did this more abstract style and color it in color blocks, typically used on manga or anime for the shadowing. And I know that these markers are blendable, so you can actually blend two colors together, but I didn't want to draw in that style, and I really like how it turned out. After I did some highlights, I decided to outline everything with a black fine liner to make the colors pop and actually define the shapes, because right now it looks like a mess of colors and I wanted more definition. The sketch was pretty much gone as soon as I covered it with the paint, so some parts were a little off, and now that I have the outline, I can fix the mistakes. The painting is done, and honestly, it was really therapeutic for me. It was like coloring in a coloring book. So now I cut the painting to put on the center of the page, and I can put some washi tape behind it. And this was the one that I mentioned that was my inspiration for this theme, and I'm going to complement it with a solid pink washi tape to bring out the pink on the flowers. I wanted to put some gold somewhere because washi tape has some gold gilding in the swirls. So, after I did some gold lines on the water, I also copied the swirls onto the page and made it look like it was flowing from the painting. And I love this effect. On the left page, I'm doing a calendar as I usually do every month in my reading journal. I just use it as a visual reading log. I color the days that I spent reading each book, and it's just for fun. I don't actually take any information from it, I just like to go back and see it. But first, I put some decoration on the top and bottom right corner. On the bottom, I put this dragonfly sticker that was in the sticker sheet that I used for the little moons on the cover, but it had a transparent background, so it wouldn't really pop against the dark washi tape, so I put it on sticker paper, cut around it, and it's just like a sticker again, but with a white background. As you can see in here, the white paint marker is really opaque. It completely covers the pink marker in one go. And no, the paint doesn't ghost or bleed through the paper, but keep in mind that this notebook has 160 GSM paper, so it's thicker than a normal notebook. With the cover spread done, let's move on to the book reviews, and the first book that I'm going to do is The Danger You Know. As I've been doing for the past 2 months on this journal, I like to use some images that I find on Pinterest that match the aesthetic of the book or some characters' fan art and mix it with my stationery that typically match the book cover. So in this case, the book cover has some blue in it, so I try to do this collage in blue tones. This mausoleum is part of the story, but I don't want to give you any spoilers. So I really like this book. It is a stalker romance, but it's different than the ones I read before. The story is really interesting and it has a good plot twist at the end that catch me by surprise, which I love. The story follows Adeline. She lost her mother and her father, so she's alone, and she's a free spirit until she decides that she wants to settle down and be more calm and collected. And for that, she marries this guy named Grant, which honestly is the worst. And then we have Ari. He's a contract killer, and because of a situation, Adeline catches his attention. And then it just begins to be more involved in her life, but from a distance. Honestly, if you want a good stalker romance, read this one. It has some violence and trigger warnings, but it was worth it. There was some parts that broke my heart, some parts that pissed me off, and some parts that made me happy. And when a book does that, it probably was a good one. I also found Adeline relatable in the way that when she's doing her own thing, it's when she feels like herself and she's free. And I appreciated Ari for protecting Adeline from the sidelines, even when she didn't even know him and he didn't push for it. Their whole romance had a really unexpected beginning, and I was really invested. I actually was reading Shatter Me at the same time as this one, but I was so invested in Ari and Adeline's story that I had to pause Shatter Me and finish this one first. And this happens every time I'm reading two books at the same time. I pause one of them to read the one that excites me the most. And if you are wondering how I read two books at the same time, that's because one of them I read in paperback and the other is in ebook. So the paperback I read at night at home and the ebook I can read in my breaks or lunchtime at work. I like to put a little quote on the page, so I chose this one. But I guess it's better the devil you know and all that. Or the danger in my case, because that's what I am, a danger. I think this one resumes the book pretty well, how Harry felt like a danger towards Adeline. So now I just have to write my review, and if any of you knows Portuguese and don't want spoilers, don't read it. I always write my reviews in Portuguese because it's better to explain myself, and I just write all the other things in English, so it's good to write in my language. Let's move on to the next page. That's going to be my review for This Book Sucks. And on the contrary, this book did not suck at all. I loved it, and it actually is a novella. It is really short, but it's the perfect length. I don't think it needed more pages. Even though it's really short, it explains the story super well and it didn't leave any unanswered questions. This book is about vampires, as you can see, and I love anything that has to do with vampires. I watched the Vampire Diaries, Twilight, the Dracula movies, literally almost anything. I just really enjoyed the stories around them and the folklore, so it is really mind blowing that I actually just read one book about vampires that was Bride by Ali Azawood, and now this is my second book, so maybe I should work on that and read more vampire books. A little interruption before I explain the book. I wanted to mention that I also used these PET flowers on my February 2024 bullet journal setup and also on my May reads in 2024, so I'll link the videos down below if you want to check it out. And now, getting back to the story, it surprised me because I didn't know, but this is a sapphic romance, which I haven't read any before. The book follows Naria Volkova. She's a vampire in the present era, and she's the owner of a restaurant and bar named The Page Turner, and she hired Katrina Fournier to work at the bar. Katrina has a boyfriend that she's not happy with, and she has to do some other work to make ends meet. I can't say anything more because the book is really short, and if I did, I will give the entire story away. But if you want a quick read that has some spicy scenes, it has sapphic romance, but it also has some action, this is perfect for you. If I like the font on the book cover, I like to try and do it myself on the page, so that's what I did in here. And if the font is basic, like the one on the Danger You Know, I just do my usual calligraphy style. To match the book cover, I decided to put some blood on the letters with the Arrtx paint marker in red to look like it was dropping onto the letters below. And then I thought the image of the face down below was a little muted, so I used the markers to make the colors of the lipstick more vibrant, and it worked really well. For the quote, I chose this one. And though the misogyny evolved with the times, men never changed. Which is true, and it's perfect for this book because Anaria saw many things throughout her life as a vampire, and if she says this, I believe in her. You have to prove me wrong. Alright, let's move on to the last spread of this March setup, and that's for Shatter Me. I used this fan art made by Tabby's Art, I'll link her Pinterest down below. And honestly, I was really debating if I was going to start the series or not, because it's a long one and I saw very mixed reviews about it, but in the end I decided to give it a try and I loved it. It was so different than the books I typically read, and the story was very interesting, the writing style was amazing, and I love dystopian stories. Even though I just read one dystopian book series before, which was The 100, that was because I watched the series and I wanted to see the differences between the book and the TV show. And then I just watched the Hunger Games, the Divergent series, the Maze Runner, and some other TV series, and I loved every one of them. And this book didn't disappoint. The story takes place on a dystopian society that's ruled by the re-establishment after the world as we know was destroyed by the climate and wars, and they want to basically erase everything that was from the old world and start again. The main character is Juliet. She's a 17-year-old that's currently locked up in an asylum because of a crime that she committed. She has this condition that everyone she touches dies or gets gravely injured, so she begins to think she's insane. Until one day, a man named Adam, that she knows from school, gets put in her cell. And the story continues after that. I'm not going to say anything more because of spoilers. But we get to know Aaron Warner. He's basically the man in charge of the sector that they are in, and he's my favorite. He's also this man that I'm putting on the page, and I know who is the man that Juliet gets in the end, but for now I'll just say that I don't trust Adam. I don't know why, but it's the vibe, I think. I actually don't know anything more about the series except the main couple, and I'll try to keep it that way. So, a little bit about the spread. I used this paper that looks old, and I wrote "I am not insane" over and over again to kinda mimic the state of mind that Juliet is in the beginning, and I put it behind her. And then for Aaron, I just drew some sketches of some falling buildings to bring that dystopian feeling, and I color it with some gray, beige, and a little bit of purple to tie in with the color of Juliet's outfit to keep the colors balanced. I am so excited to continue the series, since every book is connected, it ends with a cliffhanger, and there's nothing more that I hate than a cliffhanger. But of course, it's important to keep the readers engaged and excited for the next book. And the good thing for me is that this series is completed, so I can buy the next book whenever I want and I don't have to wait until the release. After I did my classic calligraphy, I chose two quotes. The first was, "Raindrops are my only reminder that clouds have a heartbeat, that I have one too." Which is so sad that Juliet thinks this way. And the other is, "Hope is a pocket of possibility. I'm holding it in my hand." So basically, these two quotes show the progress of Juliet's state of mind, from feeling hopeless and like she doesn't belong anywhere, that she's not worth to live, and then she begins to feel a little bit more hope and that maybe she's not worthless. To fill that little space on the top, I drew another building and then I wrote my review. Also, I completely forgot to mention, but my favorite dystopian slash apocalyptic TV show is The Last of Us. And yes, I also played the two games and it's my favorite of all time. And I also watched The Walking Dead, which is also one of my favorite shows. Just want to mention it since it's on the topic. So tell me which is your favorite series, TV show, or movie on the comments so that I can have some recommendations. And it's time for the final flip through. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give a like and subscribe, it helps me a lot. And I hope that you liked this different cover spread, since I usually do them more scrapbooking style, but I honestly had so much fun with the markers, so don't forget to check them out in the links below. This March was so good in terms of books, and April had a very different start, but I'll let you know in the next reading journal update, so stay tuned to know what book I'm talking about. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!